Well, let's face it, a lot of Americans are sick and tired of the current special counsel. And what could we possibly gain from a sequel, except more bills and fewer answers? Joining me now to break it all down, co-host of The Five, Kimberly Guilfoyle, who's also a prosecutor and worked for the LADA for years.
Yes, the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office and San Francisco District Attorney's Office. Yes.
All right, so let's talk about this, because I understand there are people who feel like this whole thing is politicized and so unfair that they want to balance it out with a new special counsel. What are your thoughts?
Well, look, you can understand that, because that's part of the kind of the idea and overall atmosphere in D.C., which is people say, oh, the swamp, or that it's fraught with politics, partisan divide, ideology rules instead of common sense, or putting the interests of the American people first. So the idea that perhaps you could get someone who is more of a neutral, arbitrator and that type of thing to be able to go over it and investigate it in a way where people might have more confidence in the outcome, not someone who's aligned with one side or the other. But nevertheless, and Condoleezza Rice made these comments, which I thought were quite telling when she was on The View and she was on with Schiff, and she said, at a certain point, you really have to let the American people move forward. And we're kind of fraught with all of these investigations and special interests and special counsels. And yes, it's going to be quite expensive, that's for sure. But if there's something, there's truth and justice to be had, then there should be, no price that you wouldn't pay for it. But this is going to be going all the way back to 2015, 2016, going over all of this and sort of rehashing and relitigating all of those issues. And then, okay, to what end?
Well, the problem is, if you have a second special counsel, there's no guarantee that this person is going to be objective.
Right.
There's no guarantee that this person will stay in their lane, with acceptable boundaries and go after truth and justice, which are so desperately, they need servicing right now. You could find a person who becomes politicized in the process. You could find someone who dismisses, Hillary isn't president, therefore we really don't have to go after her, and use whatever subjective logic they need in order to justify what they're doing. I think that, the thing about the special counsel now, we don't know which direction it's going to go in.
That's correct.
We're all trying to read the tea leaves,
Sure.
and we're all trying to understand what Mueller's going for. And right now, it's still a very big mystery. If he fails and there needs to be some change to the special counsel law, let him do it. I think adding another one on only compounds the problem.
Well, that's there's a very substantial school of thought and people that feel exactly like you do, that it is just going to exacerbate it. What are we really going to get in the end in terms of an outcome here? What are the true actual goals that people are trying to achieve here, the objectives? So you have to make sure that it isn't just, okay, well, this sounds like a good idea and let's just do. It's an investigation about an investigation about an investigation. And it kind of just multiplies itself and can spiral out of control. The partisan politics thing, I think, is what people are really upset over. And you see a lot of strife and divide and vitriol in the rhetoric that's being used, in the country from both sides. And this sort of feeds into that. Well, what is your side up to? It's worse than our side. I'm going to show you our memo. Let me see yours. That type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's a really good point. That's a great illustration, is the dueling memos.
Right.
Instead of getting more transparency and seeing the raw data and the FISA warrant application, which we should have seen in the first place.
And I think we may want to just get to the bottom of the Mueller investigation first and see what the outcome, is of that, because otherwise it's just like a, domino effect, and then there's an investigation, then there's an investigation, and there's so many different things going on. Then this is happening at the expense of what? Governance and getting things done, and efficiency, and making sure that we're actually being smarter and doing, more with less, and making sure that this is something that's actually serving the American people and isn't about, putting egg on the face of the other side.
No, it's like, I'm going to go get my big brother so he can fight you every time you do something wrong to me on the kickball court.
Well, sometimes that helps.
It does. Sometimes it helps.
Except I was the big sister to go over there for the little brother, which he didn't think was so cool.
Well, now he's thanking you.
Yes.
And hopefully, in the end, we will see some resolution in this process.
Definitely.
But you're absolutely right. Governing by special counsel is no way to govern, and that's not what we do in a democracy. Kimberly Guilfoyle, thank you so much.
We concur.
We concur, darling. Very good.